not have anything. Please give us a guarantee that you will not admit them to. I personally feel it was nice. The Americans are the ones who have always dumped every treaty. Not one, the umpteen number of treaties. But there was some kind of a comfort level that the probably Russians wanted. It was not given to them. And since it was not given to them, the only option for them was to try and force. Nobody will agree that what they did was correct. But if you were to think from the real politics and security perspective, major powers violate these rules all the time. And so we have seen that this is what happened in 2 months' time, less than 2 months in Istanbul conference. They agreed that there will be, uh, Zelensky said, President Zelensky of Ukraine, he agreed that he will not join NATO. President Putin agreed that Ukraine can join European Union if they want. So that was a big giveaway for them. Economically, they can get integrated, but not security-wise or politically. And what we saw that British Prime Minister Boris Johnson spoke to Biden, and Biden said that we will defeat Russia. They thought it was Russia's weakness that Russia has agreed. And then we see the reason, now it's 3 years. One thing as the students of international relations, I would like you to mull over and think about it sometimes. That if you come to think of it in the 20th and 21st century, none of these superpowers have won a single war. They've lost all. Look at Vietnam War, United States lost and left Vietnam. China invaded Vietnam and was defeated in Vietnam. Soviet Union went into Afghanistan, lost it completely. United States came into Afghanistan in 91. 20 years later, trillions of dollars, thousands of lives, destruction, was defeated and left in a hurry, without even telling their partners, European partners, that we are quitting. They just left overnight. And Soviet Union, Russia is winning this, fighting this war, supposedly a superpower, for over 3 years has not been able to do anything. Look at Israel for that matter, in the Middle East. It's been fighting for 18 months with a non-state actor, Hamas. We ourselves have burnt our fingers in Sri Lanka. So it's not something that we also don't know. So this situation is that with this war, what did we learn? I put it as 4 Fs. The first F was weaponization of financial instruments by United States and the West. When they decided as a part of the sanction to keep Russia out of it, they confiscated $360 billion of Russian money, which was in their banks. Now that created a very major challenge in the world today. Going forward, it's going to be. In the next Cold War 2.0, if it happens, this kind of a weaponization of financial instruments will be a very major area and angle. I'm not following this actually, but I'm sure they will be able to share with you so you can read that later. And the second F then, Russia did, what did they do? They weaponized 3 Fs, the food, the fertilizer, and the fuel. Russians are a major oil producer also. They are a major food producer as well. So they tried to do all the 3 things, fertilizers, which had a great impact on the global economic scene. And so everybody has to start with those 4X. You have 4X. And then come to the Middle East war, which is the most significant war for us, for India. Very often we tend to just discard it as not very important to us. But look at West Asia. It is the most important region for us, even more important than our immediate neighbor. And that is why, because of the 4 Es. Firstly, energy security. We get about 70-80% of our energy from that. And then you have economic engagement, a lot of investments coming in. Then you have your expat community. 9 million people are sending roughly about $50 to $60 billion a year to India, which comprises 1/10 of India's total foreign exchange reserves. Think about it. I mean, this is not something that is easily come by. And then fourth thing is the ease of navigation. Because all your trade goes through these choke points, the straits. Anything happens to them, it will choke us completely. So this is going to be a major challenge. And that's the reason India always talks about that we must follow dialogue and diplomacy. We must sit across the table, resolve our issues. And that's what is the second, I would say the reason of foreign policies. And that's why the countries think that what India is doing is the right thing. I mean, at least they're propagating, and they're not only propagating, they are also following it. With our biggest nemesis is China. China is going to be our biggest challenge going forward in every geography, not only bilaterally, in South Asia, Southeast Asia, West Asia, Americas, Africa, everywhere because China is omnipresent. And China's basic fundamental policy towards India is to keep India bracketed into South Asia. So when you are looking at a global role, you have to break out of this mold. And China's basic purpose essentially is keep India dogged down into its neighborhood. So our neighborhood today is in shambles. Bangladesh used to be a point that we used to say is the best relationship we have. Today, with Bangladesh, we are having a major problem. We have even disallowed the passage of their food or access to other markets or to India. The Pakistan continues to remain our one challenge, but we have to start discarding it. I always used to say that we should not allow Pakistan to bring us down to their level, which they used to do every time. India, they will equate with India. Today, fortunately, we equate with China, which is a good thing. It is also, you must remember that 1990, the GDP of India and China was nearly the same, 80s onwards. But China started its economic reforms way earlier. The Americans helped them, and today where they are, 5 times our economy. We are catching up very fast, and that's what China is worried about. But China has also realized that we are not in a 1962 mode anymore. That idealist, and there is one policy experts all know that idealism is required, but it's only one of the pillars. You need to be a realist to be able to counter day-to-day problems as they come along and anticipate them. And that's precisely what the Indian foreign policy today is doing. And as we know that Afghanistan, another major important partner of us, was totally in shambles after Americans left. And you see, I mean, irony is this. I mean, you must see that what is the hypocrisy in the whole thing is our double standards. Really school, but the fact remains is that they use this very often as a game plan. What they do is regime change agenda is number one. And even India is not exempt from it. They tried their best through USAID and all. We all in the business know it, that how it worked against us and how much, what kind of things they were going to do. So we are going forward with knowing too well that all these countries who are our strategic partners today are not really very dependable. So that's why we say that we are continuing with our strategic autonomy. But there is a change in the strategic autonomy from 1947 onwards or 50 onwards and today. Today we are looking at more for multi-alignments, minilateral groupings. You must have heard about BRICS, you must have heard about Quad, across the countries with different divides. So today India is in a position where we are important partner in the BRICS countries of membership, founding member again, part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization with China and Russia predominantly. We are part of the Quad, we are part of the IPF, and we are part of various trilaterals, about a dozen trilaterals with various countries. And now we are also looking at various connectivity projects, major connectivity projects. You must have ICC, International North-South Transport Corridor. Go through Iran and to Russia to Europe. And on the second one we are talking about after G20, when we had our presidency in 2023, IMAC. So the IMAC is India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. It is currently under a bit of a back burner, simply because of the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. But that has not prevented India and the UAE and and Saudi Arabia to continue to do what is required in our part, so that as soon as the situation stabilizes, it starts working. It's a strategic move. And it is not only a multimodal transport. It is connected with data, it is connected with energy, it has so many dimensions to it. So where we can, we are working together with the UAE and India, and it's going strongly. The leaders are committed. Sherpas have been appointed. So that's a very important. This is another third one is of course the Kalanan, the Eastern Highway. And the policies that India has followed in its neighborhood, like neighborhood first policy, despite the problems with our neighbors, we are still continuing with that. Wherever we have tried to punish a little bit, like currently in Bangladesh, this has been to just chastise them for a while, not the people. When I went to Bangladesh, I told them, they said, oh, India has done this, you are keeping Hasina, you are doing this and that. I said, whatever we have done, if we have built the bridges, if we have built the roads, this is not for Sheikh Hasina to walk on. It is for people. If we had done in Afghanistan, those are people of Afghan people. So today, Taliban, which was very much brought by Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and the USA into being, wants India to come and work there. The people understand, but political hype is so bad, and that's where the domestic politics comes. And in the neighbors, the biggest problem is our neighbors also have the states, Indian states, which also dictate our foreign policy choices. Whether it is Nepal, whether it is Bangladesh, Bhutan, or whatever, all of them are, or for that matter, Sri Lanka. Up look at the Sri Lanka case. So very many people will criticize the Indian government's neighborhood policy, first policy. Foreign policy, every country has to do that. And I always say that if we say that we have strategic autonomy with regard to superpowers, so we are a superpower for them. So they are trying to have a strategic autonomy between India and China, try to extract the maximum mileage. So we should not be worried. We should also have a thick checkbook policy you want to confront China. Because we have one dimension that we have with is people to people connect. That is very much there. But that can work to your disadvantage as well. So therefore, it is very important that we continue to engage with our neighbors so that they do not develop into a course of disaffection against India and working at the behest of someone else. China, for example, is one country which is investing a great deal in all these, and to our disadvantage. So today our relationship with Europe is good. With Russia continues to be very strong and robust. With the United States, I would say currently at its best, except whatever Trump does on your tariffs and trade, we can talk about it. China, we are trying to manage the relationship. And that's what shows you. In Africa, we have a focus, but I think we should focus more. Because going forward after 2050, in my view, Africa will be the place where we believe all competition will take place. And that's something is extremely important. I think we are focusing. Now, I had said that there are, I don't know if there are 4 V's here on the show or not, but how do we go about it? So, 4 V's of India's foreign policy that are there, including its soft power, everything. We are not hoping to become a super military power. Because we have seen, and I told you about the way the military powers have been defeated. India is looking to become, in fact, follow 4 V's like value-based foreign policy, as I said, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. And that's the most important thing. And that's not we are just propagating. We follow it and we pursue it, work on it. Then be a Vishwamitra, like the friend of the world, Bandhu. or a myth friend, mixing my three and all that I mentioned to you. And lastly, be the voice of the global south. Why it is very important for us? Because the developing countries, they look up to us. We have a program called ITEC, Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Program. You must read on the MEA website. The program was started in 1964, helping developing countries, underdeveloped countries, with market access, with capacity building, with infrastructure development. We provide assistance under that to 161 countries. This is something that many people don't know, the countries don't know. This needs to be appreciated. That despite our own constraints, we have continued to provide all kinds of assistance. So these four V's are the ones with which we are moving forward. Now, how do we get there? How do we relate to other countries so that our problems are minimized? Dr. Jaishankar mentioned these as three M's in the context of China, but it's broadly applicable everywhere. And that is that number one is mutual respect, number two is mutual interest, and number three is mutual sensitivities. So there are three M's are very important. If I want to deal with you, I must respect you. We must have similar common interests. And we must be sensitive to each other's sensitivities. Extremely important. And then you may agree or disagree, whatever Prime Minister Modi says is Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, really is applicable in over whatever we do with the world. And how do we do it? It is again there are five S, which is first is Saman, is respect. Samvad is dialogue. Sahyog is cooperation. Shanti, peace, and Samriddhi is prosperity. That is the way going forward. So India is today looking to not only be a rule taker, like whatever has been done by others, we are beginning to be part of the rule making process. And it is clearly visible. How is it visible? In fight against the climate change, after the non-alignment movement, if you come to think of it, 70 years later, we start something called International Solar Alliance. This is the first initiative between the North and the South in a way, that France and India worked the climate change. More than 100 countries are part of it. Then we started the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. Then we started the Global Biofuels Alliance. All these are aimed at fighting the climate change. So that is something because it's existential. Trump may move out of the Paris Agreement, that is a different thing. But at the same time, if this planet is not there, there's no planet B where we can live. So we got to save it. Somebody has to take the lead. And India is taking the lead. And it is not taking the lead because it is something geopolitically very interesting. Because it is in our DNA. You even worship the trees, you worship the stones and everything else. We live with nature. So this is something that I believe is very important. And lastly, I think somewhere I have given this, that Bharat, how do I see, and Madam, you mentioned, I think for the benefit of the students, personally I look at Bharat as B is the biggest country by population, at least until 2050, the